You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
What happens when Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly team up for a fiery roast and Jimmy Kimmel becomes the unlucky target? Suddenly, it stops feeling like late-night comedy and starts looking like emergency career treatment with ego-shattering jokes and truth bombs loaded with extra heat, turning the whole thing into a full-blown blaze where Kimmel might as well be the marshmallow getting toasted. This isn't your average celebrity clash, it's a verbal demolition derby, and Jimmy clearly forgot his helmet. So what did he say to spark all this chaos? Keep watching, because it's messier than a major Twitter meltdown.
Yeah, all of a sudden the ideology shifts because so many people are compromised by this very thing that we were talking about before. The very thing that they use to control the media in terms of the news, they use it to control the media in terms of late night talk shows and monologues as well. It's the same influence because they're the same sponsors. The same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact. If it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money, guess what? That affects you.
Once upon a time in the world of late-night TV and perfectly polished sincerity, Jimmy Kimmel played the part of the lead jester, the guy known for beer-chugging bits and bikini bounce house skits. But now he's shifted so far that he's practically Hollywood's Dalai Lama, clutching pearls over every moral crisis with the same hands that once cheered for fart jokes. What changed? Well, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly have theories, and they definitely didn't whisper them. They launched them loud and clear.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal.
Oh.
Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine. If you are of the right and happen to just say, hey, people used to wear blackface and nobody freaked out about it, you get fired.
First up is Joe Rogan, the MMA commentator turned podcast giant and full-time wrecking ball for anything sugary or fake. And he doesn't tiptoe into criticism. He charges in like a caffeine-fueled rhino, ready to crush anything pretending to be real. To Joe, Kimmel isn't just another late-night host. He's a leftover relic from a time when comedy actually meant something more than reading cue cards filled with virtue.
That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic.
Rogan's view isn't about personal drama, but a deeper kind of disappointment. Because when someone builds a career on being the everyday truth-teller, watching Kimmel shift into Hollywood's moral concierge feels like discovering your favorite dive bar now serves gluten-free kale shots with inspirational quotes taped to the glass. It feels like betrayal wrapped in a laugh track, and Kimmel's evolution, or devolution depending on your angle, plays out like a full satire sketch that practically writes itself.
You know, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, your pronouns are ass and hole. which is pretty funny. But then,
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
Hold on. So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
The man who once rode the edge of comedy like a wild rodeo bull now clings to a shiny moral compass that somehow always points toward the loudest applause, and Rogan, always hunting for authenticity, spots the rebrand from miles away. It's not just a shift, it's a full career Botox makeover. Nothing says, "I'm still bold," like repeating the same predictable political message, squeezed between jokes, approved by HR, while Rogan's world stays messy, chaotic, sometimes wild, but always real, a place where people can disagree without bursting into moral flames. Yet Kimmel seems wrapped in the comfort of Hollywood's safest opinions, and what Rogan sees is someone who traded his comedic spark for Instagram approval. Once unpredictable, but now totally beige. It's like watching a 90s punk rocker turn into a Whole Foods ambassador. Sure, he still cracks jokes, but now they come with warnings and labels. Comedy that once hit like a punch, now landing like a corporate memo. In a late-night scene scrubbed clean for the algorithm, Rogan sees clones telling the same jokes, same politics, same punchlines, with no risk and no bite, turning late night into a daycare for ideologues reading cue cards while Kimmel plays the head babysitter.
Got the Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel, and ABC elevating, the blackface loving Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on, The Bachelorette, for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever acknowledging.
The man who once rode the comedy edge like a rodeo bull now grips a gleaming moral compass that somehow always spins toward applause. And Rogan, who hunts for authenticity like a focused bloodhound, catches the scent of Kimmel's rebrand instantly. It's not just a shift, it's a full career Botox makeover. Nothing shouts, "I'm still daring," like repeating the same recycled political message tucked between jokes cleared by HR, while Rogan's world stays messy, chaotic, sometimes wild, but always real, a place where people can disagree without burning up. Yet Kimmel seems wrapped tightly in Hollywood's safety blanket, and Rogan sees a man who traded his comedic spark for Instagram approval, someone once unpredictable but now completely beige. It's like watching a 90s punk rocker become a spokesperson for Whole Foods. Yes, Kimmel still tells jokes, but now they come with warnings and safety labels. Comedy that once hit hard, now falling like a corporate memo. In a late-night world, not just sanitized but bleached for the algorithm. Rogan sees nothing but clones repeating the same jokes, same politics, same punchlines, with zero risk or bite. And late night has become a daycare for ideologues holding cue cards, where Kimmel has somehow ended up as the head babysitter.
Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things, like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side.
The media loves a redemption story as long as you sing the approved tune. And Jimmy has practically become the lead performer. But here's where things get juicy. While Kelly breaks down the PR tricks and carefully staged apologies, she also exposes the real motive behind it all. Because Bill doesn't get forgiven for being sorry, he gets forgiven for switching sides. It's not about morals, it's about matching the market, where values are optional and loyalty to the narrative is required. So now you've got two very different critiques aimed at the same man, with Rogan calling out the plastic shell where a comedian used to be, and Kelly pointing at the empty suit behind the media curtain. And both hit painfully close. Rogan sees a once genuine voice buried under studio polish and approval addiction, while Kelly sees a strategic chameleon adjusting just enough to survive each outrage wave. And together, they become the most unlikely tag team, one swinging a bat while the other files a detailed report. With the only thing missing being popcorn, because the comedy isn't even the real issue anymore. It's that it barely tries, as Kimmel, who once pushed boundaries, now babysits them, turning monologues into homework assignments meant to prove he read the script.
They were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
Do you think in that case, do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
No, it's him, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host The Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous shit back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for he-he's and ha-ha's.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
But viewers never tuned in to be graded. They tuned in to laugh, and somewhere along the way, the jokes turned into lectures, and the punchlines became mini TED Talks with applause signs. That's what Rogan and Kelly highlight so sharply, the pure absurdity of watching a guy who once stood for irreverence now representing scripted outrage. A comedian who used to expose hypocrisy, now scheduling it. There's no real rebellion left, only rebranding. And in the big irony of modern media, the more Kimmel moralizes, the more hollow it feels. Not because morality is bad, but because it's so clearly manufactured, with every teary speech and every carefully packaged outrage crafted for social media like a product launch. Sincerity turns into a group project, and the impact is obvious. Late-night TV has become an echo chamber so loud it can't hear itself, while Rogan, in his chaotic bunker, wonders when comedy became a PowerPoint presentation, and Kelly, in her polished media war room, watches the same clown car slide off the road again and again. Kimmel stays quiet, but he doesn't need to, because his silence weighs more than his monologues. At this point, it's not about what he says, but what he's turned into. A punchline without a setup, a moral compass with a brand deal, a performer in a show nobody finds funny anymore.
Now, I will tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million, averaging, also equally horrible.
They didn't even invite him to the roast. They just took one look at the whole act and called it exactly what it is. A sitcom without a script, a sermon with a laugh track, an empire built on irony now selling sincerity at bargain prices. And this is where everything starts feeling like a Netflix documentary titled The Day the Clown Cried for Ratings. Because when Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly both dragged Jimmy Kimmel through the same muddy puddle, one swinging like a blunt force caveman philosopher, and the other dissecting him like she's prepping for a major courtroom battle, you know something deeper is bubbling beneath the laugh track. It all comes down to the sharp divide between authenticity and performance, since Rogan's whole appeal is being raw, unfiltered, and bold enough to terrify PR teams, never trying to be lovable, which is exactly why people listen. While Kimmel has turned himself into something closer to a human press release, his once edgy comedic spark replaced with polished messaging, smoother hair, and a moral high ground with a scenic view.
They want to shut me down on being on McAfee. They want to shut me up from...
Well, that was the Kimmel thing, right?
Well, no.
Did you ever talk to that dude? Have you ever talked to him?
I've been on the show years ago, yeah.
Would you ever have a conversation with him in person?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they wanted me to be on the show in the summertime after I got traded.
Really?
there, obviously been some things that he had said about me that made me go, I don't know if I want to do that. I'd rather.
It's like watching a former punk rocker show up to a PTA meeting in khakis while passionately debating gluten-free cupcakes, because the man who once mocked Hollywood now is Hollywood, wrapped in branded virtue and sprinkled with whatever the internet approves this week. Rogan's take is that Kimmel isn't evolving. He's dissolving into a soft, safe puddle of applause-chasing goo, while Megyn Kelly steps in like a corporate HR investigator carrying receipts, not caring that Kimmel used to be funny, but fascinated by how completely he's been repackaged and sold. To her, the transformation looks too perfectly timed to be real growth, more like moral Botox that appears smooth but feels fake and needs constant touch-ups to stay relevant. And together, Rogan and Kelly don't just critique the man, they expose the system he now thrives in, leading straight into the lost art of comedy. Remember when comedians actually took risks, made people squirm, maybe even rethink their beliefs? Those days feel gone, replaced by comedy that's been softened, sedated, and shoved into a merch store where every punchline must be PR approved and sanitized for safety.
I've got serious questions about whether any of this is true. I mean, in every job I've ever worked, I've had people who would jump through brick walls for me, and I can be a tough boss. I'm not an asshole, but I'll say, like, that was a shitty packet. Like, we need to do better. That was not okay. And the team, my team loves me, and I love my team because we are all about putting out great work product. And I'm quick to compliment too. Like, what did he say? He basically said, are you okay? Seriously, do you need help? That's causing people to lose their hair? People need to toughen up. Your workplace is not your nana's lap.
Rogan sees all this and practically shouts into his microphone about it, while Kelly notices the same issues and raises a sharp eyebrow. Yet both land on the same conclusion. We've traded real laughter for audience claps that reward what's ideologically correct instead of what's genuinely funny. It's comedy transformed into a sermon, with Kimmel playing the overly serious preacher reading from the gospel of whatever's trending. And the media doesn't just encourage this, it demands more, because the safer and more polished your content is, the bigger the coverage. Kimmel doesn't just survive in this setup, he thrives as the template, the updated model of a late-night host with less edge and far more moral superiority, leaving us at a cultural crossroads where people like Rogan and Kelly, messy but fiercely independent, swing at the walls of the media bubble while Kimmel and others smile through carefully rehearsed sincerity, floating on public approval like a duck in a designer suit. But none of this is only about one comedian losing his bite. It's about an entertainment world that forgot how to laugh unless the target is pre-approved. A world where satire that once had teeth now nibbles gently like a tofu piranha.
I don't think that conversation is a conversation that should be held in front of an audience in 5-minute chunks like they do on television.
Yeah.
That's a conversation that you have to let air out. I want to know why you think the way you think. Him, sit down with Jimmy. Why do you think the way you think? Why would you think that it's okay to say that it's a real simple thing? The people that have been vaccinated, you treat them. And the people that took horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy. Really? Is that really how you...
It's about what happens when comedians stop challenging the powerful and start brunching with them instead. Because when comedy forgets who it's supposed to mock, the punchline doesn't just weaken, it turns tragic. If you need a picture, imagine a clown who once flipped tables now sitting calmly at one, sipping herbal tea, while studio executives praise him for being brave, and the crowd isn't laughing. They're clapping nervously, pretending the speech they heard was comedy instead of confession. So yes, Rogan swung the hammer and Kelly used the scalpel, but it wasn't just about Kimmel. They were examining the same thing, the artificial, calculated, and humorless core of modern media. And the wild part is that the punchline actually landed, even though it wasn't funny. Late night used to feel like a 2 a.m. bar, messy, unpredictable, sometimes inappropriate, but honest. Now it feels like a corporate team-building seminar run by someone who forgot how to be fun. And if anyone wonders where the spark disappeared to, Rogan and Kelly basically handed them the map. Because when Joe Rogan, the human Molotov cocktail, and Megyn Kelly, the PR assassin, both lock onto the same target, you don't get an interview, you get an autopsy. And the subject isn't just Kimmel, it's everything he now represents.
Back in the day when I was on the prime time of Fox and you were on the prime time of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on and they occasionally would make us laugh, Piers. As you know, they've abandoned that game now and they're just political operatives out there. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our clients.
It all comes down to the culture of fake growth, the illusion of courage, and the echo chambers that reward comedy only when it flatters the right people. Because Rogan and Kelly didn't just call out Jimmy Kimmel, they exposed the scaffolding holding up his entire stage. And they didn't do it with anger, but with disappointment, sarcasm, and a perfectly timed side-eye, the kind of ridicule that doesn't shout, but smirks, leaving a silence that hits harder than a mic drop. So the next time Kimmel climbs onto his moral lifeguard chair to warn America about the dangers of mean tweets, maybe pause and ask whether you're watching a comedian or a commercial for a new flavor of Kool-Aid. Because the jokes used to matter, and now they're just the delivery system for the lecture. And if anyone is still laughing, Rogan and Kelly have only one question. At what? Welcome to the roast that didn't even need a stage. Just two critics, a hollow brand, and a punchline that practically wrote itself.